The Great Wall of China is not visible from space with the naked eye. Despite popular belief, astronauts have confirmed that the wall blends into the landscape from orbit, requiring telescopic lenses to spot it. The Salem Witch Trials didn't burn witches at the stake. In Salem, Massachusetts, those convicted of witchcraft were primarily hanged, with one person crushed by stones. Burning was more common in European witch trials. Pirates didn't bury treasure as often as stories suggest. While pirate tales romanticize buried chests, most pirates spent or hid their loot in practical ways. Only a few documented cases, like Captain Kidd's, exist. The Wright brothers weren't the first to fly. While they achieved the first powered, controlled, and sustained flight in 1903, earlier inventors like Otto Lilienthal and Gustav Whitehead experimented with gliders and unverified powered flights. The Renaissance wasn't a sudden rebirth of knowledge. It built on centuries of medieval scholarship, including Islamic and Byzantine contributions in math, science, and philosophy, preserved and expanded before Europe's cultural boom. Paul Revere didn't complete his midnight ride alone. Revere was joined by William Dawes and Samuel Prescott, and Prescott was the one who reached Concord to warn of the British advance after Revere's capture. The American Revolution wasn't won by guerrilla warfare alone. While tactics like ambushes helped, French military aid, naval support, and conventional battles like Yorktown were crucial to defeating the British. Samurai weren't always honorable warriors. Despite their Bushido code, some samurai acted as mercenaries or betrayed their lords for personal gain, especially during Japan's Sengoku period. The Wild West wasn't as violent as Hollywood portrays. Many frontier towns had strict gun laws, and violent crime rates were often lower than in eastern cities. Most conflicts involved disputes over land or resources. The Mona Lisa wasn't always famous. Leonardo da Vinci's painting gained global attention after its 1911 theft from the Louvre, which sparked media frenzy and cemented its cultural status. The Crusades weren't solely religious wars. While framed as holy missions, many crusaders were motivated by land, wealth, or political power, and trade routes were a significant factor in the conflicts. Ancient Egyptians didn't rely on slaves to build the pyramids. Archaeological evidence shows the pyramids were constructed by skilled laborers and conscripted workers who were well-fed and housed, not primarily enslaved people. The American Civil War wasn't fought only over slavery. While slavery was an issue, states' rights, economic differences, and political power struggles between the North and South also fueled the conflict. Joan of Arc wasn't a knight in shining armor. She didn't fight in combat, but inspired French troops as a visionary and strategist, wearing armor for protection while rallying soldiers against the English. The Declaration of Independence wasn't signed on July 4, 1776. It was adopted on that date, but most delegates signed the engrossed parchment on August 2, 1776, after it was prepared. The Titanic didn't sink just because of an iceberg. Poor ship design, inadequate lifeboats, and the crew's failure to heed iceberg warnings contributed to the disaster's scale beyond the collision itself. Robin Hood likely wasn't a real person. The legend of Robin Hood stems from medieval ballads, but no historical evidence confirms a single figure who robbed the rich to give to the poor. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't free all slaves. Issued in 1863, it applied only to Confederate-held territories, leaving slaves in Union border states and areas under Union control still enslaved until the 13th Amendment. The Boston Tea Party wasn't about high taxes. Colonists protested the Tea Act of 1773, which lowered tea prices but gave the British East India Company a monopoly, threatening local merchants' profits. Vikings didn't wear horn helmets in battle. Horned helmets were ceremonial or artistic creations, not practical for combat. Viking warriors wore simple iron helmets, or none at all. The Alamo wasn't fought just for Texas independence. While it was a key battle in the Texas Revolution, many defenders were motivated by land grants and economic opportunities, not just ideological freedom. Napoleon wasn't unusually short. At 5'7", he was average height for his time. The myth likely arose from British propaganda and confusion between French and English measurements. The Underground Railroad wasn't a literal railroad. It was a network of safe houses and routes used by enslaved people to escape to freedom, with conductors like Harriet Tubman guiding them. The Spanish Armada wasn't defeated by a single storm. While bad weather played a role, English naval tactics and Dutch resistance weakened the Armada, contributing to its failure in 1588. The Forbidden City wasn't completely forbidden. While access was restricted to the imperial family and officials, servants, concubines, and invited guests could enter parts of the complex. The Battle of Waterloo wasn't won by the British alone. The Prussian army, led by Gebhard von Blücher, played a critical role alongside Wellington's forces in defeating Napoleon in 1815. The Great Chicago Fire wasn't started by a cow. The story of Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicking over a lantern is a myth. The fire's cause remains unknown, though it likely started in a barn. The gold rush didn't make most prospectors rich. While some struck gold, many miners went bankrupt, and merchants selling supplies often profited more during the 1849 California gold rush. Ancient Rome didn't fall just because of barbarians. Internal issues like economic decline, corruption, and over-reliance on slave labor weakened the empire, alongside external invasions. The Liberty Bell didn't ring to announce American independence. It was likely rung days later to call people to hear the Declaration read, and its famous crack appeared decades later. Knights didn't always wear heavy plate armor. Early medieval knights wore chainmail, and full plate armor developed later, mainly for tournaments or late medieval warfare. The plague wasn't eradicated in the Middle Ages. The Black Death recurred in Europe for centuries, with later outbreaks like the Great Plague of London in 1665 to 1666. The Rosetta Stone wasn't discovered by Napoleon. French soldiers found it in 1799 during Napoleon's Egyptian campaign, but it was British forces who later acquired it for the British Museum. The Incas didn't use written language. They used a system of knotted cords called quipu for record keeping, relying on oral tradition for history and communication. The Battle of Thermopylae wasn't just 300 Spartans. Around 7,000 Greek warriors, including Thespians and Thebans, fought alongside the Spartans against the Persians in 480 BCE. The Star-Spangled Banner wasn't written during a battle. Francis Scott Key wrote the poem in 1814 after witnessing the bombardment of Fort McHenry, inspired by the flag enduring the attack. The Great Depression wasn't caused by the stock market crash alone. Bank failures, unequal wealth distribution, and declining consumer spending deepened the economic crisis of the 1930s. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon may not have existed. Described by ancient writers, no archaeological evidence confirms their existence, and they may have been confused with gardens in Nineveh. The Roman Colosseum wasn't used only for gladiator fights. It hosted mock naval battles, animal hunts, and public executions, serving as a multi-purpose entertainment venue. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire wasn't an accident waiting to happen. Locked doors, poor safety regulations, and flammable materials caused the 1911 tragedy, leading to major labor reforms. The Panama Canal wasn't built by the U.S. alone. Panamanian laborers, Caribbean workers, and earlier French efforts under Ferdinand de Lesseps were critical to its completion in 1914. The Terracotta Army wasn't meant to fight. Built to guard Emperor Qin Shi Huang in the afterlife, the statues were symbolic, not functional, warriors for his tomb. The French didn't surrender immediately in World War II. After France's 1940 defeat, the Free French forces, led by Charles de Gaulle, continued fighting alongside the Allies. The Bermuda Triangle isn't a supernatural danger zone. Most ship and plane disappearances are explained by storms, human error, or ocean currents, not mysterious forces.